If I were starting over financially in my 30s or 40s, this is exactly what I would do. If you're like most people and you're feeling behind, there's probably a good reason for it. You make good money, but you can't seem to catch up or get ahead. You don't know if you're actually saving enough, or maybe you do have savings and retirement accounts, but there's no real strategy behind them. And you don't know if you'll actually ever be able to retire on time, let alone hit the rest of your financial goals. Now, most people in these situations don't actually need to earn more money to fix this, because earning more money can't fix a broken foundation. What they really need is clarity on whether what they're doing is actually working first. So that way, when they do make more money, they're putting money into a system that actually works rather than just throwing more money into the fire. And realistically, the advice out there makes it a lot worse. Every financial tip is going to tell you that you need to sacrifice your lifestyle today. Cut out the coffee, skip vacations, live like a monk. Essentially, sacrifice everything for today in order to have a better tomorrow, but tomorrow is not guaranteed for any of us. Every piece of advice out there is going to tell you to do more, right? Like do more, save more, make more, spend less, but nobody actually shows you how to make your own financial decisions where you can still enjoy life today, but still make progress towards your goals for tomorrow. And I was actually right where you are, or maybe in a potentially worse situation where I was earning decent money, but still feeling behind. I was working to pay for stuff that I didn't even really care about. I had a car payment for a car that was just nice, but all it did was get me to, from point A to point B. So there was no point in me having a nice car with the financial situation I was in. I had rents, I had subscriptions that were all these recurring payments, obligations that I had, but most of which weren't meaningfully adding to my life. They were just things that I had to pay for. And I was at the point to where I had all this debt, I had all these payments that I was obligated to, and I didn't want to just get out of debt. I actually wanted to build my financial foundations and become financially free. Financial freedom to me is the freedom to choose to live life on my own terms and not be a slave to my payments or be stuck at a job that I hate just because it pays well. But I had absolutely no idea how to get there. And ultimately, I hit a really big wall. I had my car repossessed. I had my credit cards maxed out that I couldn't even make the minimum payments on anymore. I was making $50,000 to $60,000 and I was just drowning in debt. And this was pre-pandemic too. So, this was before, minimum wage in California became close to $50,000 a year. I knew at this point that I had to completely hit reset on not only my financial life, but my financial life and just my life in general. And the reset that I did ultimately changed everything for me. And part of this reset, the very first thing that I did was I just started tracking every single dollar that I made, and I started scrutinizing every purchase. I realized that every hour I'm working is equal to a certain amount of dollars, and then I was spending my money on these things that potentially didn't even really matter. There were some purchases that I would buy, I would swipe my card, and that food or whatever it would be that I bought, I wouldn't even remember it in an hour, let alone weeks from now. So I started scrutinizing those type of purchases and a lot of even bigger purchases and just really questioning, like, is this how I want to trade my time, my hours for these type of purchases that I was making? And what this allowed me to do was find out where my money was actually going and really got me thinking on what was important to me and what I was really trading here. And ultimately, this helped change my habits that I had around spending my money that I had. And it helped me cut the things that didn't matter and helped me keep the things that started to meaningfully impact my life, whether it was just a little bit of happiness, a boost throughout the day, or something that was a major purchase that consistently brought me joy. And now I'm at the point to where I'm able to invest 30% of my income and I have a clear path forward. And this whole process of mindfully spending and actually thinking about the things that are important to me in my life, living life on purpose, it was ultimately the process that became the aligned money method that I now teach people. Now, this is something that can work for you if you're a working professional in your 30s or 40s, you're a parent, you're a spouse, and you want to work on your financial foundations and future. If you're earning decent income, but you still feel disorganized or behind, if you're doing many of the things right, but still feel uncertain, you want a real plan, not just more accounts to have, and you're tired of following advice that doesn't really fit your life. Now, this is not for you if you're looking for some sort of get-rich-quick fix. This is also not for you if you're not willing to honestly look at where your money is going and how you're spending it. And this is also not for you if you want to be told to cut everything out and just suffer through it. I think there's a time and a place for that type of strategy, but I don't think it's a lifelong, long-term strategy. It's something that I did earlier and I just told you about that, but that's not something that I would suggest for people to do sustainably. And if I could go back and do things differently, I probably would. So here's why most of what you've tried so far hasn't really worked. Traditional budgeting often feels like financial diets, right? Like they're restrictive, they're unsustainable, and you end end up falling off in weeks, right? If you've ever gone on a diet, you try to lose weight, you start going to the gym 5 days a week, 6 days a week, maybe even 7 days a week. You cut out all the bad food, whatever it is. You start losing weight, and then you end up falling off track. You regain all the weights, and then maybe even gain additional weight, and you stop all those things that you were trying to do. And that's because most people mistake activity for progress, right? Cutting out the food, eating healthier, going to the gym. Those are activity things that make you feel like you're doing something, but ultimately long term, it's just not getting you where you want to go. It's the same thing with finance, right? Like you have accounts, you're making money, things are happening, but if there's no strategy behind it or something that you can't follow long term, like if you're following some sort of budget, it just doesn't work long term, and probably why it hasn't worked for you. This is ultimately why something like retirement keeps getting pushed off further and further away, no matter how hard you work, because you're not saving long term, because you're following something that's unsustainable, not built around your lifestyle. And here's what nobody tells you. It's not your willpower that's the problem. It's that you don't have a system that fits your lifestyle. Realistically, you need a framework built around your values, not somebody else's rules that they're telling you on how to live your life. And I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money, but what I will show you is a system that's going to help you figure out how to do that for yourself, which is exactly what the aligned money method is. It's not about budgeting. While we do budgeting, and it is an important piece of finances, obviously, but it's more about understanding like where you are today, what's important to you, and what you're working towards for the future, and then identifying the gaps that are in there that's holding you back and building a foundation for a real plan. The aligned money method is built around habit formation, behavior change, and practical financial systems. The goal here isn't about having a better budget. It's about retiring on time without feeling broke today. There's 3 pillars for the aligned money method. The first pillar is values alignment. Now, values is a very heavy word, and it's not something that most of us think about on a day-to-day basis. It's deeply rooted within us, but it doesn't have to be this grandioso thing. It can be, and there's definitely aspects of it, but it could also be on what's important to you, on how you live your life on a day-to-day basis. And what this pillar is really about is getting clear on what actually matters to you today and in the future. Most people spend their money on autopilot and not actually think about what brings them joy or what moves them forward in their life. Now, values alignment defines how you want to live right now, today, and what you're ultimately working towards. When your spending reflects your values, it's easy to say no to the things that don't matter in your life and yes to the things that do. You can't build a retirement plan until you know what kind of life that you're retiring into. And something else that's not really said in here is that there's a life lesson out there where people say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And that's really what this pillar is about. Obviously, we do want to have the destination, we do want to have the goal, but really the journey that gets you there is almost as important, if not more important than the actual destination itself, right? That's where the character is built, that's where your life is actually lived, and that's where you are today. And then when you wake up tomorrow, that's your new today. So in real life, what does values alignment look like? I always like to bring up an example of Starbucks. If you like Starbucks or don't like Starbucks as a company, that's up to you. Let's just, for this example, expensive cup of coffee. But if it's genuinely something that brings you joy on a day-to-day basis, I think you should keep it. Now, obviously there's varying levels of that enjoyment and joy that it can bring to your life, but ultimately it's up to you to decide on how much joy that's actually bringing to your life, right? Like if you're getting Starbucks 5 days a week and you can afford it, great. But if it's taking away from some other area in your life, but maybe you just get Starbucks 1 or 2 times per week instead of getting it every single day, or you just get it as a rare treat. But ultimately, I don't think anybody should be telling you what matters to you. It's up to you to decide that. The goal here is conscious spending, not restriction. And you also have to think too, there's seasons of your life, and that season of life is going to change what matters to you. If you're in a season like I'm in right now, where I'm trying to build and cut back and, lay out some more foundations for a different type of future that I want, ultimately your plan should reflect that, versus if you're in a season where, you do want to build towards your future, but you also want to be able to be spending more of your resources on stuff that bring you joy, or maybe you're starting off your family right now, whatever it is, the season of life is going to define what matters to you most now. And I think that's really important when you're deciding on how you're spending your finances, and also how you're setting up your plan for the future. The second pillar here is to automate and simplify. And this is more traditional finance, which is building a system that moves money into the right places automatically. And that way you don't have to think about what your money's doing or where it's going. You have your plan, you have your goals, and everything's set up to just go where it needs to go. And the reason why this works is because decision fatigue is a major reason why people overspend or they don't put the money where they need to put the money. So if you're able to remove the decisions behind your money, you remove a majority of that problem. So what this looks like in real life is you can have separate accounts for, let's say, your bills, you have a spending account, you have your savings accounts, and then the money just goes where it belongs the moment that you get paid. So that way you can look at a glance at what's available to spend or what's not available to spend at any moment. Like if you want to know how much you can spend left in this month, you can just open your spending account and then boom, whatever money's in there, that's your spending account money. That way you don't have to just live in a spreadsheet or become your own personal accountants. You just have a system that runs itself and then you manage the system. And the last pillar here is mindful money habits, which is where you want to rewire the automatic responses that you have, which quietly drain your finances. This could be stress spending, emotional buying, boredom scrolling through TikTok and buying stuff, reactive spending, right? Like you see some sort of sale going on and you buy it just because it's on sale. Or if you're like walking through a grocery store or something like Costco, people spend a lot of money at Costco walking down those aisles, including myself, just seeing things on shelves and then buying things. And these aren't really discipline problems that we have. They're habit loops that we need to change. What we want to do is have good choices become automatic and not necessarily rely on restriction. So what does this pillar look like in real life? Well, for my situation, after I'd have a brutal work shift, whether it be really stressful or just really long, I would come home and order Uber Eats. And sometimes I would order 2 Uber Eats. I'd order a dinner and then a second dinner, or maybe a dinner and like a dessert. And if you aren't familiar with ordering Uber Eats, it's usually like 10, 20, sometimes even 30% more expensive to buy it through the app rather than going, to the store itself. So not only am I spending money on fast food, right? Like fast food's usually more expensive than eating at home, but it's also paying for the surcharge, ordering it through Uber Eats, plus delivery fee, plus, tipping the driver and whatever other fees that they would throw on there. And not only did I know it was, hurting my health, I also knew that it was hurting my wallet. So what I ended up doing was building an if-then plan. So if I started, if I came home, I was stressed out, instead of opening up the app and ordering something, I would drink some water and I would take a nap instead. And then that would give me some time and space away from the stress. It gave me a positive way to deal with that stress. And then when I woke up with a clear head and it helped me make better decisions. And that's what this pillar is about. It's about replacing bad triggers with better responses. And ultimately, this isn't specifically finance and budget, but it's really how we handle our stress, our boredom, life situations, and making better responses. Now, those are the foundations for the aligned money method, but there's really one more thing missing. Most people are saving money without knowing what their financial independence number is, their number they need to not be able to work anymore, or maybe they're not saving at all because they think they can save later on, not knowing what that number is and how much they actually need to put to hit that goal. So before you can know if you're actually on track, you need to know what you're working towards. So those 3 pillars are the foundation, but that foundation needs a target, and that's where the conversation with us starts. So if you made it this far and you're still wondering whether you're on track or not, you can go ahead and book a free 10 to 15 minute financial reset call using the link down below. During the call, we'll take a look at where you're at today, what you're working towards, and identify the biggest roadblocks that are holding you back. That way, you'll leave the call with a clearer picture of your next step, whether we work together or not. So go ahead and book your free financial reset call using the link down below. And if you're not quite ready for a call yet, but you do want to start building your financial foundations today, then go ahead and join the free 7-day financial reset using the link down below. We're going to cover much of what we discussed in this video, including a deep dive into your financial situation and helping you build the habits moving forward. So go ahead and click the link down below. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, Johnny out.